everybody, this is Marley K. I want to do a discussion about the manosphere, white feminism, black feminism, and the modern woman. I've been enthralled with these discussions about women and men and listening to men vent about the things that they're tired of, listening at women talk about, what they want or what they believe they're entitled to, and this modern woman behavior that is, in my opinion, caustic and is not helping society in general. Like this wedge between men and women, I think it's intentional, but I also see it being detrimental because neither one of us, neither group can live without the other. Women need men, men need women. And the arguments that men are making are valid. The arguments women are making are somewhat valid, but biased and don't take into account history. So I want to talk about it from a different perspective today. And I'm going to read you this piece of research done by Daniel Janosik from the London School of Theology. And before I get started, for those people who are anti-religion or whatever, a lot of the institutions that people have used for centuries are rooted in religion, in particular, Christianity, Islam, and other conservative, valued religions where there is an order where men are at the head. Men marry women, men provide for women, men fight wars, men build societies. And you tend to find those civilizations or those societies are still in existence. Now, many have fallen, but the ones that have fallen fell because of a change in dynamic or shift in the sex culture of that society. And so I'm gonna read this study, and then I'm gonna read some excerpts from Daniel Janosik's research, and then we're gonna talk about it. But my summation is that the modern woman is wrong. The modern woman is the reason that America is falling. And I can't necessarily blame the modern woman because this whole feminism and all the stuff that was introduced in the late 60s, early 70s, we're like the third or fourth generation now having experienced or living, the fruit of those laws and the culture shift. But what we are also living in is the fruit of that culture shift, and the fruit is bitter. And so men are dissatisfied with the women are dissatisfied with the men. We have hookup culture, we got passport bros, we got women who are independent women and saying they don't need a man, but they're getting, in their late 40s, early 50s and miserable because they pursued careers and looked over good quality men and didn't get married and didn't have children. And now they're feeling like they missed out, and they're admitting that what they were taught has been wrong. And then you have, this flip side where these other women are like, I don't, because I'm able to work and take care of myself, I don't have to put up with men's crap, which is fine, but that, that's an attitude. And because of that independence and ability to care for oneself, a lot of women say, well, I'm not lonely, I'm at peace, yada, yada, yada. Well, that's cool until the shit hits the fan, and then you need somebody. So, your money and your education and so on is only going to be valuable for a certain period of time or for a certain season. But when the shit hits the fan and you need protection, your education and your money is not going to help you. You're going to need a man, or you're going to be looking for men to protect you, and there are not going to be any men available because you've positioned yourself to be independent and man free. So anyway, I'm gonna talk about this essay, and it's not really essay, it's some research. So the title of this is called "The Fate of Culture in J.D. Unwin's Sex and Culture, or the Last American Generation." So I think his piece is called "The Last American Generation." I think J.D. Unwin also said the same thing, that with the experiment going on in the United States and in the West, where they became more sexually promiscuous, based on his research, it would lead to the decline and eventual fall of the American civilization. And so that's what we're living, that's what we're witnessing today. Okay, so it says, if the British anthropologist J.D. Unwin is correct in his assessment of society, this present generation in the Western world may be the last one. In his book, Sex and Culture, Professor Unwin studied 80 uncivilized cultures and compared his results with 16 civilized cultures extending over the last 4,000 years. He found that when the strict heterosexual monogamy was practiced, the society attained its greatest cultural energy, especially in the arts, sciences, and technology. But as people rebelled against the prohibitions placed upon them and demanded more sexual opportunities, there was a consequent loss of their creative energy, which resulted in the decline and the eventual destruction of the civilization. Remarkably, he did not find any exception to this trend. So what this is saying is that without fail, any time the culture changed and people had more sexual opportunities, the decline and eventual destruction of the civilization was imminent. Remarkably, he did not find any exception to this trend. From the rise of divorce, the breakdown of the family, and the redefinition of marriage itself, to the rampant increase of internet pornography and the growing danger of pedophilia, we are witnessing American culture fragment at an alarming rate. Why has there been such an outbreak of sexually deviant and sexually destructive acts? Why can we not pull ourselves together as a nation and rise above the unraveling of our moral fabric? What will the future hold if we cannot reverse this trend and right our world? I think we can find some answers in Dr. Unwin's work, even though it was written 2 generations ago. Like a prophet on the biblical stage, Unwin's message rings out to us today. We will heed his words and find healing, or we will continue our race to the ocean, lemming-like and filled with fury and futility. It is time for a change of direction. And so when I read this study, and I think about what is happening in the manosphere, and the modern women's sphere, and the feminism sphere, and the passport bro sphere, like, we are here. Like, this is like the 4th generation of decline. And so we're at a point where our civilization is about to fall all the way apart. So I'm going to read pieces of Dr. Unwin's study and Daniel Janosik. This is Janosik? Yeah, Janosik. All right. And this is just what I read from the beginning. This was like the intro of the piece, the first 2 paragraphs. So Dr. Unwin concluded that the fabric that holds a society together is sexual in nature. And let me see if I can make this a little bigger so you can see it. All right. When lifelong heterosexual monogamous relationship is practiced, The focus is on the nurture of the family, and energy is expended to protect, plan for, and build up the individual family unit. So this counters everything that our culture teaches today from the hip hop community. And I'm speaking from an African American perspective, the Black woman's perspective. Our culture is hypersexual now. Everything is about sex. You look at, I don't care, you could go on any website, there's always somebody posing in a bathing suit. Somebody's always talking about their body. We got women posing on social media, BBLs, having surgery so they can get their breasts done, get their thighs and butt done. People are wearing waist trainers, wigs, eyelashes, makeup, heels, just everything is sex driven. And it's sex driven for the purposes of sex. It's not sex driven for the purposes of getting a mate and staying in a heterosexual monogamous relationship. Our culture is now have as much sex as you want, test drive whoever you like. And, it's kind of always been like this for men, but now women have gotten in on it and women start acting like men. So now women run through men like men used to run through women. And so nobody's monogamous. There's barely any talk about heterosexual relationships. And because of this, there is no desire to protect, plan, or build up a family unit. People are not considering families. People are living for the moment, having sex, moving on to the next person. So that has led to the decline of our society. This extends to the entire society and produces a strong society focused on preserving the strength of the family. However, he, which is J.D. Unwin, found that when sexual opportunities opened the door to premarital and postmarital and homosexual relationships, the social energy always dissipated as the individual focused more on self-gratification rather than societal good. So this is where all this, I feel like, I'm speaking from a woman's perspective. I feel. You look at these modern women, you look at these young ladies today on the internet, and they are always telling you what they feel. I feel like his check should be my check. He should do these things for me because I feel as though he should offer me these things. I feel. Nobody takes into consideration, what the men want. And the men are saying, this is the type of thing we want. This is what we're looking for. We're looking for these types of people, or women. But if the women are, sexually promiscuous or not wanting to be in heterosexual monogamous relationships, and men are also not demanding or requiring it because they are also testing out the cars and seeing what the cars drive like before they decide they want it. The metric is, something else, or there is no metric. Just women are available to have sex and run through, and men are doing that. So there has been this degradation of relationships and social energy. In the end, the energy level reached such a low point, that's where we are now, that destruction from within, that's where we are now, through anarchy, that's where we are now, or destruction from without, that's where we are now. Women want men want women, nobody's satisfied. Everybody want to leave out of the country or go outside of their culture and their tribes to find something because everybody's dissatisfied. That is where we are now. Through despotism or from an invading force with greater social energy was inevitable. So this is saying that other people are going to come in with greater social energy and take over. So this is where this is where you start seeing a lot of the interracial relationship talk, or like you have the passport bros, like I'm going to another country and find other women because I don't like the women that are here. Or you have women who, like, I'll just use Black women for an example, are like, Black men don't like us. They don't want us because we're whatever, stable, independent, strong, all the stuff that men don't like. And so we're going to go to white men. Even though studies have shown like Black women are the least desirable woman out of all the women because we're strong and because we're educated more than any other group in the country, and because we possess characteristics that don't necessarily fit the heterosexual monogamous relationship types that Black men want or that they are looking for. Unwin also believes that this process of degeneration will take place within 3 generations of a society's movement away from absolute monogamy. And that happened for us in America during the late 60s, early 70s, when the feminism movement came through, and when Black feminism took root, when that toxic lady, I'm not gonna call her name, came through and introduced Black feminism or introduced feminism in Black and added a spin to it. It really devastated our community. And so now we're like in the third, fourth generation of feminism. And I'm thinking about my grandmother, my mother, me, and now my sons. That's 4 generations. So we are at the tail end of, our society. If this is true, then our culture in the West is now graduating the generation from its universities that will bring about the downfall of our civilization. And that's true. I'm thinking about my friends who have, kids in college, especially the girls. The girls are pro-feminism. They don't like men. Everybody's lesbian or bisexual, trisexual. The boys are trans this and trans that. And, they're off going to the university to explore their sexuality and talk about their sex and their feelings. And everything is personal about I feel, I want, I, and does not have anything to do with building communities, anything with having monogamous heterosexual relationships. Everything is sex driven. So it's just interesting to see that this man figured this out, decades ago. And here we are living what he discovered. And like this good research is out there and nobody uses it. We don't even talk about it. Surely, when we look at the rampant premarital sex, the skyrocketing divorce rate, often caused by adulterous relationships, and the rise of homosexuality, we should realize that without a true reversal of this trend, our society will die out just like all the other societies that Dr. Unwin documented. So when we talk about modern women don't have a clue about this study. They don't know about history. They're just talking about their feelings and what they've been taught over the last 3 generations, what society has progressed to. They don't realize that them pushing forward with this agenda is only turning off men and leading to the lack of, relationships, the social energy. And likewise, because men are taking the low-hanging fruit and they'll run through the modern women knowing that they're not ever going to have any plans of mating with them, instead of them just saying, hey, we don't want that. This is what y'all need to do. They've been sleeping with these modern women, leading them on. And so now they've created this culture where modern women are confused because they don't understand. Nobody wants what they're offering. They've been run through, so they feel dejected and they have low self-esteem. And then they're just plain old incompatible because society has built them to compete with men and not to be in relationships with men. So it's like we're really at the crux. So we like at this precipice of some not good things happening. And so I can see us being eaten alive from the inside and also invaded from the outside, which is why for the last couple of years, I have been talking about how, I know because I can see this civilization falling, and it's going to fall from the inside first before it falls from the outside. And yes, we do have outside interference, but we're doing a damn good job ourselves, destroying our civilization because of the way that we view relationships, the way that we practice sex, or having sex, premarital sex, postmarital sex, so on and so forth. Only a society-wide revival, such as the Protestant Reformation or the Great Awakening here in America, would be able to break this trend. Without a revival, America will die. And so that's what you see happening now. We are hearing and seeing and feeling the death of America because people do not value relationships. They don't value heterosexual relationships, and they don't value monogamy. So when you don't have those things, it's difficult to keep a society going because people are so focused on sex and doing things to get attention, and men are distracted because they're pursuing sex and not really focused on building, because you're not doing anything to build a family and to build a home, to build a community. You're just chasing women and having sex and having a good time, but you still have this emptiness and loneliness that is not being fulfilled because everybody's committed to not being monogamous. So that's just my 2 cents. In this article, I will explore J.D. Unwin's study of the 96 cultures and show how his conclusions are very applicable to the decline of the American culture today. After an explanation of Unwin's findings, I will then attempt to correlate them with our society via various surveys that have been conducted in the area of premarital and postmarital sex. I will then show how Unwin's conclusions are reflected in the Bible, and that the only hope for our society is the remedy that is outlined in the Bible. Repentance, forgiveness, and a renewed commitments to God's prescription for marriage. I support this wholeheartedly, but I'm sure I will have people who oppose. History is history. There's nothing new under the sun. So we can sit here and pretend like, we're doing something different and it's going to work. But we already know this shit ain't going to work. It's failing. It's already failed. We're like on the last leg, on the 8th or 9th stage to failure. And I don't see us turning around. And until we have these conversations and try to get back to the basics and try to figure things out, we're just heading for a ditch. We're going off a cliff, and you can't deny it. So I want to go on the record and be one of those people who actually try to fix the problem and provide a solution. But I doubt that, the stubbornness of people today, they're not going to listen. All right, so here, 3 cultural conditions of a society. After studying 96 cultures, Dr. Unwin concluded that there are 3 conditions that define the social energy in a society: the zoistic, the manistic, and the deistic. The zoistic culture has the least creative energy and is characterized by a lack of any sexual continence. Unwin states that these people possess the power of reason, but they do not apply it to the world of their experience. Generation after generation, the same tradition is handed on. The same ideas prevail. Time does not alter them. In such a society, human beings are born, they satisfy their desires, they die. And when their corpses have been disposed of, they are forgotten. And so they list a page number where you can read this in Unwin's actual study. These cultures have no forward movement unless they change their views and restrict prenuptial sexual opportunities. If this occurs, then they will progress to the monistic condition that seemed to be due to the operation of a factor which produced or intensified thought, reflection, and energy. Unwin seems to think that this movement upward is due to an irregular or occasional restriction of sexual incontinency, so that a small amount of mental and social energy is produced by the emotional conflict and there is a slight modification of their zoistic ideas. In order to progress to the highest level, that of the deistic culture, there would need to be a continued change in thought, reflection, and energy present in the manistic culture. But the defining action would be that the women were compelled to be prenuptially chaste. That is, the prenuptial sexual opportunity of a deistic society was less than that of the monistic society. Though Unwin realizes that the deistic culture implies that there is often a religious motivation to preserve a strong monogamous society, he does not feel comfortable with a supernatural explanation. He prefers to attribute man's control of his destiny to a naturalistic resolve and a deterministic attitude that he feels will result in a mastery over nature and destiny, which I disagree with. I believe that deistic culture or religious motivation absolutely is necessary to control feelings. People don't do what they feel when they, believe a higher power or something supernatural is not just observing them, but they are working towards honoring something higher than themselves. They want to live a certain way because they understand that way is good. And it may not be your way, but they understand the end result will be good things. As a Black true Hebrew, I totally understand and I can see that this culture, Western culture, does not fit African American Black culture or Hebrew culture. It's not our culture. We've adopted something and it's not working for us. So we need to get back to the basics. And our basic is the Bible. It's our culture. It's our book. It was written for us. It was written about us. And yet we don't use it. We use something else totally contrary to it. And then we wonder why we are getting the results that we're getting. We wonder why we don't like each other. We wonder why we're sexually promiscuous. We've adopted other cultures and other gods that are not our gods. And so, we as African Americans have to look at that. Now, other people from the West, y'all got to deal with your own gods and your own problems and your own culture. I don't really know what to say, except for y'all created this monster. Y'all keep creating these monsters and they don't work. And you keep allowing your civilizations to fall. You build them up and then you do this same thing and they fall. And so you'll go back and you'll see where these cultures are rooted in some of the same behavior. None of these cultures that he studied were able to continue without a strong resolve toward absolute monogamy. Yet most of the cultures that held to this virtuous position were based on religious regulations and motivations. So you look at old civilizations like the Arab nations and Islam. You look at some of the African cultures that are Jewish and they held on to the Bible and the Torah. You look at the Jewish community, same thing. These people hold on to their monogamous culture and they're more successful. You look at Western culture where we promote feminism, we promote, hypersexuality, we promote and export homosexuality. And we start now at earlier ages. Kids are in school learning about homosexuality. It's like, wow. But you look at that and then you look at the rest of the world and you see how the rest of the world is rejecting, or they don't want feminism. They don't want Western values and cultures because our society is falling. They already know what's going to happen because they've seen white culture fall over and over and over again. Nobody wants that. But because, here in America, we're not taught history, especially not this type of history. We don't understand that this is not good for us. So when you see these men complaining, especially Black men, like, I hate to say this. No, I don't. I love saying this. Life comes from us, African Americans. We are the people of the book. Life comes from us. We know what works. We know what doesn't work. And so you're having this movement of Black men, African American men say, this is not what we want. We want these types of women. And just naturally, it's just coming out. I don't know. Most people probably haven't even read this study, but just naturally, they are trying to revert back to the old ways to get things back on track. And they're receiving pushback from modern women because modern women have adopted and love this Western culture. They think they're going to win with it, and it is a losing game. There are no prizes for picking that ride. Just saying. I'm going to go down a little bit and read some of this. Most who interpret the origin of religions through the filter of evolution will then say that in time, man comes to the point of realizing that there is no supernatural power. So all that is left is the worship of man as God, and that is humanism. Others will see the futility of that and progress on to nihilism, which claims that there is no meaning in life and certainly cannot be called religious. Thus, in the evolutionary view of the origins of religion, man ends up where he began, with no religion. In the Bible, in the biblical view, however, man starts with the belief in one God, and then through degeneration and corruption, his religious views may become polytheistic, humanistic, animistic, depending on the amount of degenerative views involved. And so this is what we are living now. God was taken away out of schools, religion, or Christianity or Protestant values, were pretty much erased and replaced with politics, replaced with feminism, replaced with, social justice, music and entertainment. And so you see now, after the religion was moved, we are here where, people are either atheists, they are engaging in nihilistic behavior, degenerative views prevail. You can't listen to the radio or watch television without seeing something about sex. Everything is about sex. Everything. I don't care. It's a commercial about car, food, laundry detergent. Everything is about sex. Even cartoons. Children are learning about sex in cartoons. Like, sex is in everything. So, there is some truth to a lot of what is in this paper. The 4 types of post-nuptial regulations. So generally speaking, Unwin believes that when human societies were absolutely monogamous, they displayed a much greater energy than any other society. In fact, he suggests the cultural condition of any society depends upon the amount of energy which it displays. The amount of that energy being dependent on the intensity of the continence imposed by sexual regulations. Thus, if a culture adopts stricter regulations in regard to sexual practices, it will become homogeneous and extremely energetic. In his assessment of cultures, Unwin divides them into four types according to their views on postnuptial regulations: modified monogamy, modified polygamy, absolute monogamy, and absolute polygamy. Modified monogamy refers to the practice or circumstance of having one spouse at one time, the association being terminable by either party in accordance with the prevailing law or custom. Modified polygamy refers to the practice or circumstance of having more than one wife at one time, the wives being free to leave their husbands in accordance with the prevailing law or custom. Absolute monogamy refers to the practice or circumstance of having one spouse at one time, but presupposing conditions whereby legally the wife is under the dominion of her husband and must confine her sexual qualities to him, under pain of punishment for the whole of his or her life. And then lastly, absolute polygamy refers to the practice of circumstance of having more than one wife at one time, these wives being compelled to confine their sexual qualities to their husband for the whole of their lives. During his study, Unwin noticed that both a modified monogamy and a modified polygamy allow for more sexual opportunities outside the strictures of a monogamous relationship. And this always led to a decrease in the social energy of those cultures. Even a society with an absolute polygamy, such as Islam, could not sustain the same level of energy as that of an absolute monogamy after the conquest and marriage to women who came from a strict monogamous culture. In the next generation, the energy dissipated as they were brought up in a polygamy. Even in absolute polygamy, the society preserves but does not increase its tradition. It does not possess the energy to adopt new ideas. It remains content with its old institutions. We see this stagnation in the world of Islam today. The only culture that has been able to sustain a growth in social energy has been the absolute monogamy. And this is important because in our culture today, all that is preached is sex, sex, sex. How much sex can you get? You know, the music is all sex driven. Entertainment, sex driven. Education, we got sex ed in school. You used to learn about sex at home from your parents. If your parents didn't teach you about sex, you just didn't know about it. Now your parents don't have to tell you anything. You could just go to school, parents sign a release, and then the kids learn about sex. And God knows whatever they're learning, parents most times don't know because they don't care. But no culture has been able to sustain that energy for an extended period of time. In the past, different societies have risen up in different parts of the earth, flourished greatly, and then declined. In every case, the society started its historical career in a state of absolute monogamy. Now, you think about America, how America came to be. When the Pilgrims came here, they were Protestants. They believed in one wife, one husband, strict sex. Nobody got divorced. People stayed together till they died. Nobody talked about how they felt. Nobody gave a shit about happiness. Men did what they were supposed to do, build, provide, take care of the family. Women did what they were supposed to do, take care of the family, keep house, raise kids, do whatever she needed to do to support the husband. And that was it. Society thrived. America was built. Same with the West. Now you look at today, we can't do nothing because everybody got to be accommodating everybody's sexual preferences and feelings. And, you know, we got to accommodate women because we got, you know, all these civil rights laws that make sure people are included in everything. So it's just really different now. In the past, different societies have risen up in different parts of the earth, flourished greatly, and then declined. In every case, the society started in its historical career in a state of absolute monogamy, manifested great energy while it preserved its austere regulations, and relaxed after a less rigorous tradition. had been inherited by a complete new generation. And that's what we are experiencing today. So, you know, how our great-great-grandparents lived after the Emancipation Proclamation and during the Reconstruction era, you know, as the 40s, 50s, 60s came along, people still kind of did the same thing. They kept the same values and morals and culture. But after the 60s, after the civil rights movement, and after integration, after feminism was introduced, and then after birth control, abortions were allowed, and then we had feminism. Society just changed, and we can't deny that. One of the reasons that societies have not been able to sustain this energy is that in order for an absolute monogamy to work, women had to be reduced to the status of legal non-entities. Eventually, they were freed from their disadvantages, but at the same time, that sexual opportunity of the society was extended. Sexual desires could be satisfied in a direct or perverted manner. No dissatisfaction demanded an outlet. No emotional stress arose. So the energy of the society decreased and disappeared. In other words, the sexual opportunity of the female is more important than that of the male. Whenever the status of the woman is raised in a society, the sexual opportunities also increase. So the more money women have, the more, you know, I guess she feels like a man and she can do whatever she wants to do, or she has the freedom and liberties to do what men do. Whenever the status of the woman is raised in a society, sexual opportunities also increase to its own detriment. The only exception to this rule, though not acknowledged by Unwin, is when the culture is guided by a strong religious foundation that enforces chastity as well as the equality of women. This is why Christianity has been able to prolong the social energy of a culture. But this is also why Christianity is crucified today in America. You think about, you know, they took away everything. They had to take away Christianity out of school, out of state, out of everything. All those morals, you know, the things that built this country were Protestant and taken from the Bible. Well, all those good things were taken away from our society so that we could usher in feminism and you know, hypersexual conduct, interracial sexual access. Basically, do whatever you want to do to whoever you want to do it. You can have sex with children, animals, men, women, just whatever. People do whatever they feel. And so here we are right now. We're seeing that because Christianity has been railed against for so long and removed from our society, it's been replaced with this other culture based on sexual desires and things that lead to instant sexual gratification in the short term, but nothing in the long term, if that makes sense. A modern correlative. If the assumption is granted that every human society is capable of displaying social energy, then Unwin concludes compulsory continence must be regarded as the immediate cause of a cultural advance. Any extension of sexual opportunity must always be the immediate cause of a cultural decline. And so this goes back to what I was saying earlier. The fact that modern women don't understand that these men are trying to tell them that, hey, we're not satisfied, you know, their energy is not going to be directed towards them because they have deemed those types of women not good mates. They are not good to be in heterosexual relationships with. They have already had sex outside of marriage, so they don't believe that these women will be monogamous or that they'll be satisfied because they're accustomed to having sex with multiple partners. So this is like a really complex issue. But I'm talking about it from a modern woman perspective because I'm a woman and guess I'm trying to be middle of the road, but I'm not sure if I'm doing a good job of that. I'm just here to tell you the truth of what I see. And I see that based on this study, because women are not being monogamous and not wanting monogamy because they can have everything, they can have it all, they are causing the society to fall apart. All right. In regard to the Sumerians, Babylonians, Athenians, Romans, Anglo-Saxons, and Protestant English, Unwin reminds us, in the beginning, each society had the same ideas in regard to sexual regulations. Then the same struggles took place. The same sentiments were expressed. The same changes were made. The same results ensued. Each society reduced its sexual opportunity to a minimum and displaying great social energy flourished greatly. Then it extended its sexual opportunity, its energy decreased and faded away. The one outstanding feature of the whole story is its unrelieved monotony. America is very much like the golfer Tiger Woods. I'm going to end here. Who went from the cute 2-year-old kid swinging a golf club on the Mike Douglas show to a phenomenal success in his 20s when all his talents seemed to come together and every dream seemed to be fulfilled. He was at the top of his game as well as the top of the world. However, when fame, fortune, and power should have been an asset, his destructive sexual behavior began to unravel his life and led not only to a divorce, but also to the self-destruction of his golfing ability. There was a young promise of a golden future, then the fulfillment of dreams beyond reckoning, and then the long slide down paved with sexual misconduct and episodic eccentricities. America has also enjoyed the glory of youth filled with as well as the fabulous heights of material success and the respect of the world. However, the sexual revolution of the 60s and 70s may well have initiated the 3-generation slide mentioned by J.D. Unwin in his book, and they have page number. So I'm going to include the book in the description so you can read it if you like. So I'm going to read this as well. In the November 13th, 1967 issue of Newsweek, these changes are documented. The old taboos are dying. A new, more permissive society is taking shape. And behind this expanding permissiveness is a society that has lost its consensus on such crucial issues as premarital sex, marriage, birth control, and sex education. James Dobson says that the burgeoning social ills seen in Western nations, including rising crime rates, drug abuse, sexual exploitation of children, and the disintegration of families, can be traced to the disintegration of traditional values and biblical standards of morality. That's pretty much what J.D. Unwin's study concluded. And so Janosik is also making an analysis of American and Western culture and making the same analysis. We are basically repeating history and not in a good way. The explosive rise in premarital sex and divorce are among the top reasons for the decline of our nation. One survey states that nearly 1 million teen girls get pregnant each year, while nearly 4 out of 10 young women get pregnant at least once before they turn 20. In the United Kingdom, 31% of births were outside of marriage, and for every 2 marriages, there is 1 divorce. Another survey done in America states that the average age at which a person becomes sexually active is 16 years. Another one revealed that 63% of youth aged 14 to 21 are sexually active. And yet another survey found that 70% of youth will become sexually active before graduation from high school. It also showed that 50% of 15 to 19-year-old young women and 55% of young men have engaged in sexual intercourse at least once. In a report by Ben Wartenberg in the book, The First Measured Century, which consulted a number of sources, the percentage of 19-year-old unmarried white women with sexual experience soared from 6% at the turn of the century to almost 75% at its end. Now, that is a hell of an increase. And now, just think, white women influenced Black women to follow them and do this shit. So they ensured the society was going to fail uh, because we needed to be like them. And because, you know, of the civil rights era, and because Black people have this inferiority complex, I'm just saying, we want to be like white people. We strive to be like white people, even to our detriment. So we left our typical culture and adopted Anglo-Saxon white culture. And then here we are today, floundering, miserable as hell. What we need to understand from the sampling of statistics is that over the last 40, 50 years, our nation has been in a sexual free-for-all that has effectively eroded away our public good. Remember that the French historian Alexis de Tocqueville wrote over 160 years ago, America is great because America is good. Well, evidence shows that America has ceased to be good, and now it may only be a matter of time before it will even cease to be. Kirby Anderson of Pro Ministries believes that the only hope for our nation is to turn around, for apart from revival and reformation, this nation is destined to decline. He goes on to outline 10 stages that civilizations go through in their journey from bondage back to bondage, and that is where we are. The first stage moves from bondage to spiritual faith. The second, from spiritual faith to great courage. The third stage moves from great courage to liberty. The fourth stage moves from liberty to abundance. The fifth stage moves from abundance to selfishness. The sixth stage moves from selfishness to complacency. The seventh stage moves from complacency to apathy. The eighth stage moves from apathy to moral decay, and I think we're on the eighth stage. The ninth stage moves from moral decay to dependence, and I think this is where we are too. Because now you hear people talking about, oh, I don't need a man, but now everybody wants socialism. Everybody is looking for the government to take care of everything, instead of like it used to be where you had a husband and husbands got together and they took care of whatever the community needed. They don't do that anymore. There has become, the government has replaced the husband or the men in the community. And so that's where we are today. And the 10th and last stage moves from dependence to bondage. And so here we are, because we are so codependent on the government, now they're getting ready to put our fucking asses in bondage. Excuse my French, but that's how I feel about it. We are getting ready to go into bondage. That is what the New World Order is about. That is what digital currency is about. That's what smart cities is about. That's what the destruction of the food supply, food chain, and them telling us what we can and cannot eat. All of this is tied to our reliance on these systems and governments and rich people controlling us, because we have relinquished our own freedoms when we decided to be, I guess, sexually promiscuous and not be in heterosexual monogamous relationships with a husband and a wife. From my observation of our nation, I would have to conclude that we are in the 8th step, moving very quickly to the next step of dependency on the government. And this was written some years ago, so I'd say we are beyond that stage now. 2020 and 2021 showed us or put us on a path to be dependent on the government with Rona and the lollipop. Bondage is not far behind. Kirby Anderson then points out that this is the fate of every nation unless revival and reformation reverses the cycle. And I don't see us getting back to any Christian values or morals, because people are absolutely into their pronouns. They're absolutely into sexual deviancy. We have strayed away from the church. The church is basically defunct now. It entertains the social decay, and it does not correct and does not do what it initially did when the Protestants originally came here and lived a certain way. So I don't see us reversing anything. I just see things only getting worse. The book of Judges outlines the cycle that the Israelites, which is the Black folks, African Americans, went through as they turned away from God, and they are at the same stages that America has gone through. Our fate will be the captivity and dispersion as well, unless we redirect our energy back to a renewed relationship with God. And this is really important, and it ties into the awakening of African Americans, learning that they are Jewish people, that they are actually Judah, from the tribe of Judah. That we are learning that we are dispersed all over the world, that our history has been hidden from us. And with our history being hidden, so has our culture, so has the laws, statutes, and commandments from the Bible, because that is originally how we lived. When we went into captivity, we were punished. And so we had to do what the saying says, when in Rome, you do what the Romans do. Well, that's what we've been doing. So we are headed to what happened to the Roman Empire. It fell, and we're there. Kirby Anderson also points out that the decline and fall of a nation usually comes from within. And that's what's happening now. You see the gender wars, you see the modern woman wars, you see the passport bros bashing the American women. You see the traditional men who want the old-fashioned woman saying this is what we want, and you see the modern woman pushing back. You see the older modern woman who is like not wanting to be bothered with men, and she's online ranting about it, and she's influencing the younger generation to have the same attitude because of the divorce and the sexual promiscuity and the large numbers of women who are raising children in single parent households, that not needing a man, not wanting a man, not having a man in the household will be conveyed to the children. And so the next generation, which is going to be the fifth generation, will be experiencing this further decline. Even though some may have fallen to barbarians, the demise of the nation ultimately came because of moral and spiritual weakness, which manifested itself as military weakness. And so with that, it's saying that because of the attitudes that we hold, a lack of monogamy, a lack of, self-worth and community building, just the things that men used to do in a society has changed, and the way that they think has changed. And when it comes to military defense, I'm just going to try to put this into terms of, with men and women. Men are better and more confident when they are paired with women. They're fighting for something. When the men go into the military and they're married, they're fighting because they want to come home. They're fighting for their family. They're fighting for their country. They're fighting for their community. Well, when you got these single men who are not getting married before they go into the military, who are habitual bachelors, or you have these women now who can fight alongside men, and they're leaving their families, probably having, relationships with fellow soldiers, so on and so forth. That's a weakness that translates into national weakness, because we're not fighting for the same thing. We just are not fighting for the same thing. We don't have the same values. So things are just different. The progression of a nation's decline follows a 4-stage pattern that the Apostle Paul outlines in Romans chapter 1. In the first stage, the people turn from God to idolatry, which we've already done because we worship everything, anything, everything. In our nation, the idolatry is represented by the worship of money, position, and power. In the end, it only leads to emptiness and futility, which is why you see women crying on the internet because they can't get a man. You see men complaining because they would like a woman, but the women are not suitable because they don't follow. They want to be as powerful as men. They want to make as much money as men. They brag about their position and their education and what they bring to the table. And men are not asking them to bring anything to the table. Men just need them to be like old-fashioned women, and women don't know how to do that because we've been raised with three, 4 generations of feminism. In our nation, this idolatry is represented by the worship of money, position, and power. I'm sorry, I already read that. In the end, it only leads to the emptiness and futility. The second stage is when men and women exchange natural sexual relations for unnatural ones. James Dobson shows how this trend towards homosexuality, now flourishing in a number of cultures today, much as it did in societies from the past, such as Sodom and Gomorrah in ancient Greece, as well as in Rome, where it reached epidemic proportions, Dobson says. The historical record tells us that those cultures and many others gradually descended into depravity, which is where we're going, as the Apostle Paul described in Romans, resulting in sexual perversion in all its varieties. The third stage, Anderson outlines, is anarchy. And this is where we are headed. So this is why I keep saying by 2024, 2025, we're going to be like, tear the club up in America. America is just going to be done because people are at their wits' end. People are unhappy and dissatisfied with each other. And so you are going to see our verbal aggression turn into physical aggression. And you're already starting to see it with, young men feeling like it's okay to go into schools and shoot up children. You're seeing women be more violent with men, the way that men would be violent if they were fighting other men. You're seeing men, it's just a total, destruction of society, but all because of our moving away from religion, God, and our values, where we value men and women in traditional roles and traditional relationships that stem from the Bible. The third stage, Anderson outlines as anarchy. Moral and social anarchy result when cultures reject the word of the living God. We see this in Unwin's observation of the loss of expansive energy and social cohesion as a culture moves from absolute monogamy to a modified one, where sexual indulgence becomes the rule, and in time, the social structures that hold the culture together begin to erode. And that is where we are. The fourth and final stage in this path of destruction is judgment. The society that practices immorality will bring condemnation upon itself, and the ultimate judgment from God will be when he gives them over to their sexual perversion. Here we are. We're there. This progression from idolatry to sexual perversion to anarchy and finally to judgment is found throughout history. J.D. Unwin documents it in his book as the movement from the deistic culture to a zoistic one, from an absolute monogamy to a modified one. This progression occurred in ancient Israel, in Greece, Rome, Persia, and Babylon. And those are some of the most successful, wealthiest societies the earth has ever seen. So there's no need to think that America, little baby 400-year-old America, is going to be able to pull itself up by its bootstraps and get itself together. Not at this late stage of our society. People are dug in to the way that they want to be. And modern women don't want to change. They have this sexual liberation. They have this power. They have this money. They have earning potential. They have status in society. They can vote. They don't have to have children. They can have abortions. They don't want to give any of that up in order to make society work. So that's a form of selfishness. Likewise, men are seeking women who want to give these things up, and they're not willing to compromise, which is going to cause friction. They're also willing to go outside of the country to find spouses and bring them back, or to not bring them back. They're just going to be passport bros and do whatever. That's problematic. So the country is going to be destroyed because nobody will change. Everybody is selfish now. We're set in our ways, and there are laws that have been put into place, especially by our federal government, that overrides the traditional male, female, heterosexual, monogamous relationship, especially with this current administration. So it's all but done, just waiting on it to fall. That's why, people tell me I'm all doom and gloom. Hell yeah, I'm all doom and gloom because I see the writing on the wall. History is repeating itself, and there's no need for me to tell you a lie like things are going to get better. It's not going to get better because we don't like each other, period. So the modern woman can keep crying and complaining about men don't want them, about what they bring to the table, about being a good woman, so on and so forth. Modern women don't enable societies to be built, and they don't allow modern societies to survive and thrive, because the more sexually active and promiscuous they are, and the more a society in general gives into its sexual desires, the less productive it is, the less that energy is going towards producing things that keep societies built and functioning. So you look at our culture, everything is sex driven. And so I don't see it changing. And if you do see it changing, please let me know in the comments. But, I'm going to say this puppy is a wrap. It will also destroy this nation as well unless we heed the words of 2 Chronicles 7:14. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal their land. And at the end it says, may this be our prayer. And so as I close, because I'm African American, because the Bible was written about and for us African Americans and other tribes, the 12 tribes, we need to get back to our culture. And so for modern women, for passport bros, for Black men who are sick and tired of this modern culture and don't feel like, they're able to find a suitable mate, they can't afford to be with a woman because society does not respect them. They don't feel like they want to work to protect these modern women or whatever. Like, we have to figure out a way to fix this. But it is going to require compromise, and it is going to require having to let go of traditional values. So this year, I'm going to spend a significant amount of time trying to dive into this. It's going to be problematic because it's dealing with religion in the Bible. I hate to say religion, but it's dealing with the Bible because I'm not going to get into it. It's just dealing with the Bible and these scriptures. It is undeniable that the Protestants founded this nation, and this nation was founded on Protestant values. It is undeniable that over time we have gotten away from those values and that culture. It is undeniable that our society is in decline. It is undeniable that African American women and men in particular are being destroyed because we have adopted cultures and gods and started worshiping other stuff instead of getting back to the basics. And so we're going to have this conversation. It's going to take a while. I understand a lot of people are not going to want to have this conversation. I'm going to have to try to do a navigation of navigating the religious and the spiritual and the law, statutes, and commandments piece versus the natural worldly piece of it. But I'm gonna try to do it. I don't know if I'm gonna be successful, but we're gonna have to come to a point where this is addressed, because we cannot continue to live apart. We need each other. We're going to need each other more than ever, because this country is going into decline. We are almost at the final stage where we are in bondage. And when you go into bondage, that's another enslavement. We've already been enslaved for 400 years. I'm not interested in going back into enslavement. I'm interested in working with my brothers and my sisters in getting us out of this rut. And I don't know how we do it without communicating, without looking at data, without looking at history, because we just can't do whatever we want to do and just think it's going to work. But we also can't ignore history and act like there's something new under the sun. As this study concludes, it's not. So I think Daniel Janosik is correct in his assessment. I think JD Unwin is correct in his assessment. And the only thing that we can do at this point is look at the history, look at the data, and change or decide. We just admit, hey, the study is right, but we're just going to keep doing what we want to do and fall into decline, fall into bondage. So we're almost at the stage of bondage. And I don't know how people really feel about that, especially men, because men, if we fall, we all fall. And I don't want to fall. I don't want to fail. I would like to be with like-minded people. And I want to try to bridge this gap. I'm not a pro-modern woman. I'm not pro-feminism. I think it is all ridiculous, and I understand the history of it, the nature of it, why it is there, and it is to keep us divided. So the thing that we can do is come together, but we have to make some concessions. We have to do what this scripture says, 2 Chronicles 7:14. We have to humble ourselves, pray, seek Yah's face, and turn from our wicked ways. He will hear us. He will forgive us, and he will heal our land. He will heal our nation. He will heal African American people. And then we can come together again and be like we were intended to be, and let go of this Western culture, because it's not ours. We're not Anglo-Saxons. We're not Romans. We wasn't Persians. We're not Babylonians. We are children of Israel. We are Israelites. And so we need to get back to our ways. This is not our culture. We need to give them stuff, these people, their stuff back. Set ourselves apart is what we need to do, and we need to work on healing ourselves. So with that said, I know this was a long video, but I feel like it's an important topic, and I will be covering it with other people throughout this year. But I did want to try to take a stab at the modern woman and this manosphere statement, or the things that the manosphere has been talking about. They are actually saying the right things. Now, we may not like what they're saying. We may not like the way that they're saying it, but they're not telling the lie. They build societies. Everything that women are fighting for, they built. They want to be respected. They want to do what men do in societies. And this society, this civilization has become anti-man. It's very pro-woman. And it's always been anti-Black, but it's a whole other level now with white feminism infiltrating the Black modern woman, along with all these other different agendas, the interracial agenda, the LGBTQIA agenda. So we're dealing with a lot of stuff as far as African Americans are concerned. And I think we need to hash these conversations out. So I'm willing to talk to people about this, but please leave me your feedback in the comments. I know this, again, is a long video. I know a lot of people don't necessarily have time. This isn't a subject that you can do in a 15-20 minute video, at least not initially. And so I wanted to kind of go over this entire piece, this research paper, because the study is much longer. It's probably like 400 pages, and we need to get into it because there's no need to reinvent the wheel. Somebody's already done the research. They already know what's going to happen to America. We're already living the last stages of it. So whatever happens to America, we as a people are all we got. And so we need to work on one another. So leave me your feedback below. Don't forget to like the video, share it, subscribe to the channel. Make sure you sign up for notifications for when I release new videos. And I'm probably going to start a different channel to talk about the fate of culture, because I don't want to mix the two topics up, because I kind of talk about other stuff on this other channel. So I'm going to probably set up another channel. So be on the lookout for that, and I'll make a video to announce when I get that set up. So thank you all for hanging in there with me as I went through this piece. And again, I know it's long, but it's really important to me because I love my people and I want us to be well. And right now, African-American people are sick as all get out. So we need to work on ourselves. And I want to be a solution, and just, provide some support for the fellas, because they are out here advocating, and they don't have, they just don't have the support that women have. Women have all these advocacy groups and vehicles, and men don't have those. There are no organized bodies that work to restore this, and the church is just about done. So there are very few churches that are advocating for this. So, we're all we got. We got to work within the confines of the things that we have access to. And so I'm going to use my platforms to try to bridge some gaps for us, and bring some sanity to this insanity we're living in. Y'all keep it easy. Be safe out here. Try not to argue too much with the opposite sex. And when you do argue, try to argue with some proof or research behind you. And feel free to use this study, this research. I'll put a link to J.D. Unwin's original study as well as this paper in the description, so that you can have it and read it on your own. Please take the time to read it and look over the research, because it is imperative. You can't make an argument based on your feelings. Although I will say the menfolk are right, but if you don't give women an explanation or the proof as to why you're right, it's just going to be like, y'all are making a personal choice, and it's not based on anything of substance. So read these studies, share these studies in your circles, talk about this data in your men's groups and your women's groups, and hopefully it will change your mind about these modern ways, because our society is headed to decline. We are like at the 9th, 10th stage of civilization, and we can't do anything about it. I don't think we're going to be able to change. So at least if we can't change and stop the decline and ultimate fall, we can be prepared for the next nation, the next land, the next whatever we have, and we'll be able to work together. We'll understand what we can and cannot do. We'll be able to come back to our own morals and values and culture, and let go of what didn't work. And I'm speaking for African Americans. I don't have a dog in the fight with what anybody else does, because most people already have their culture. We need to let go of the failed Anglo-Saxon Western culture because it does not work for us. And I don't feel like I don't feel like we should adopt it or pick up any of it once this society fails. So we need to get back to us. We need to worry about us. We need to get back to our ways and the things that have preserved us over the years and give back these gods and cultures and morals and values and powers that don't belong to us. That's all I got. Y'all take it easy, and I will talk to you the next time.